Hey everyone, Cherise here and welcome back. And today I'm super excited to be sharing with you my brand new bullet journal setup for the second half of 2022. I will be moving into one of my collaboration notebooks with Maisie Lane Co. This is the cabin brown design and the other one is candle white. Both are in vegan leather hardcover and with 160 GSM paper. I was waiting for the personalized versions of these notebooks, but I guess I'll just use the blank ones and maybe customize it myself. These designs, however, are now sold out in their website, and I'm truly grateful and happy that you guys love the designs. They have other stunning designs and colors that you can personalize too. I have a discount code Cherise15 for 15% off that you can always use in their website, linked in the description box below. I started by writing my name on the introduction page, and then flipping to the next one will be my 2022 cover. My setup in the beginning of the year was very minimal. This time, I wanted to add a few more design elements, but still very achievable and functional spreads. I covered this whole page with Kraft Paper, and then using this white Archer and Olive acrylograph pen, I'm writing Hello Again 2022. A lot of you liked the idea of writing the year in Roman numerals from a New Year setup, and so many of you recreated it as well. I really loved seeing those, but for this one, I won't be able to come up with the same concept, not with one that I like at least. So I'm just writing 2022 in Arabic numerals this time. I thought of matching the theme with this notebook, but I still decided to go for botanical theme to match my yearly spreads in my first bullet journal, and maybe just save the cabin theme for my monthly setups later. Using this gray Sakura Koi brush pen, I'm adding shadows to the right side of the letters so they'll pop a little bit. Actually, looking at it now, I think black would have been better. But after that, I also want to use this washi tape with this scribble design on it. I cut a small piece and then ripped it off, creating this triangular shape, and attached it on the top right. Now I want to do a cutout on this cover, so let's flip it to the other side and make use of the dot grid as a guide to where I should cut. I'm using my X-Acto knife and started cutting out a rectangle shape on this part. I also rounded the corners and flipped back to the front. I am adding another washi tape on the bottom and ripped it as well. I could have saved time actually if I added this before the cutting process. But yeah, that is how this page will look. And then I wanted to paint something that will show through this cutout. But first, I will be writing my bullet keys that I use to mark the status of my tasks. This is not necessary for me at this point since I already know them, but I just thought it would still be nice to include them, especially if you're just starting out with bullet journaling and looking for some ideas on what to write on the beginning pages or spreads of your journal. You can also come up with your own set of symbols for your keys that you want to use. On the next page, I also wanted to include a quote. I'm writing the titles, by the way, in this lowercase serif type of font. I thought of shading all the letters in this whole setup, but I knew it's going to be tedious for me, so I decided to interchange them where some titles will be blocked and some are not. So for this quote, I just wrote them in the same font but in a hollowed style. Next, we are finally painting a simple illustration of a branch of leaves. I'm using a number 6 round brush. I just mixed sap green and yellow, and with a very light consistency, I started painting these basic leaves. I sketched the illustration beforehand and I was too excited to start on the leaves rather than outlining the stem, but that's okay, you can start either way. The technique I was doing here is I start from either of the tip of the leaf with a very light pressure on my hand, and then towards the center I add more pressure with the belly of the brush going down, and then I slowly come back up again for that pointy end. I wanted the whole look of this painting to be slightly loose, just simple and easy to paint. And you can also see me add some shading on the inner parts of the leaves towards the stem. I'm also gonna add some sparkle to this illustration using the gold Pilot Juice gel pen. I'm going to do a line drawing of this branch of leaves on top of it. It may look a little bit messy for some of you, and if you would like to recreate this, you can always have the option to leave an element out of the design. Now I'm also going to add this yellow gold watercolor using my number 2 round brush to imitate a splash of gold onto this illustration. The lighting in my filming area honestly does not give justice to this, but I hope you can see the shine somehow. All the supplies I'm using in this setup are listed on the video description, by the way, in case you are interested on something. And then I went back to the first page to add some gold details as well around Hello Again 2022. I'm going back and forth to these pages, but lastly, I'm just adding the same washi tape on the very top and middle of the spread, and on the bottom left, as well as a little round craft paper under the quote. And that's finally my cover page with keys and quote pages all done. I love how I flip over this page and still have the same illustration on the next one. But let's move on to the next spread. This is a spot for me to write down some important events or occasions, which we usually call a future log. So I'll begin with the calendar itself for July until December. I pre-cut 6 of these small rectangle craft papers and then glued them on the page. And this is where I'm writing the months. This spread also serves as my year in a glance spread. 6 months in a glance, rather. Just like my previous yearly setups, some likes to create a separate year in a glance spread, and it's basically just similar to future log. I don't really like to write too many numbers, so here I also didn't film myself writing the mini calendars, but here's what they look like. I gathered some brush pens and I chose some orange, pink, and yellow colors to draw these lines under the calendars where I will write the important events in my life this year. I only need a few spaces because I normally just write birthdays, but after that, there are some washi tapes on the corners as well. I will be playing around with the placements of these decorations in every spread so that they will still look cohesive but also different from one another. On the bottom left will be the future log title. I'm using this Pilot G-Tech C4 pen for writing, by the way, And this was my most used pen when I was still studying, so I kind of missed using it, and I'm really enjoying how this smoothly glides onto the paper. Although to be honest, I also don't like that it skips at times, though I've also used my Pigma microns a lot in my bullet journal, and I really like them for drawing. We have another painting here of a branch of leaves with 2 stems. The leaves here are quite longer than the previous painting, but still with the same technique. Again, just start with the tip with a light hand and add pressure with the belly of the brush going down and slowly go back up again. This notebook's paper now, by the way, performs similarly to Notebook Therapy. That was my previous journal, as well as Archer and Olive. The paper has definitely upgraded and absorbs water really quickly than their previous semi-coated paper. But the difference is, I think it feels less dry than those 2 brands I mentioned. So as you can see, I add another layer to the leaves because the dried result of the paint also looks different from when it was still wet. And of course, I also added gold details here. And that is my future log spread. I hope you like the layout. But now let's flip over to set up the next spread. I'm gluing this 2 long strips of craft paper on both sides of the pages first, and then I will work on my mid-year check-in goals page. I got this idea from the one and only Amanda Rach Lee. So this is just to check in how far I've been on the goal I've initially set at the beginning of the year. Have I completed a goal or in progress? And if I want to set a new one. I have 4 categories, so I just divided the page into that. I have my personal, family, career, and creative goals. And then I'm adding columns to the right side with symbols that represent whether a goal is completed, in progress, or a new one. And then I will just be marking where I am at. To the page next to it will be my affirmations and manifestations page. I have a similar page from my previous bullet journal, but this time I'm adding manifestations. This is a nice page to include to write down positive things, to boost self-confidence in achieving goals. I decided to use this gray brush pen again on the affirmations section to draw a box and colored it in. And of course, there has to be a painting of a branch here as well, so I'm placing that under the manifestations. Again, I'm painting each branch differently in this setup so they will look interesting and still as one as a whole. Like I said before, it is okay to draw or paint the same thing over and over in your setup, and you can always make each spread different by changing the layouts a bit or where you place your illustrations. But that's finally it for this mid-year check-in goals, affirmations, and manifestation spread. Next is my master to-do list and waiting on spread. Another thing I did here is including craft paper in different shapes. So this time I cut them in circles for the titles and I just glued them on both corners of the spread. I'm also adding washi tapes on the other corners, and then for the painting, I'm only doing like 2 leaves here. I didn't need a bigger illustration because I will be needing columns for my lists later. So this spread actually looks like yin and yang, as you can see, and I also drew borders on each page. The master to-do list is basically just where I write tasks that are not urgent but important, so I'll get to them when I have the time and energy to actually do them. I divided them into 2 sections for personal and work-related tasks, and then for the waiting on page is where I write something I'm waiting to receive, such as packages, email responses, etc. I divided them into 4 columns: the description, from where it's coming from or from whom, the date, and the status. Onto the next spread is my money tracker. I included another font here on the titles, by the way, and it's just a simple hollowed sans serif font that I've used since my January setup. Under the title is a branch illustration again. Also, if you are not into watercolors, you can easily switch to brush pens. You can choose a light shade for the base and a darker color for the shading. Or if you are not into it yet, maybe this is a sign for you to try them. Next step is the rectangular craft frame. This one was pretty delicate and kind of hard to put glue on, so I was really careful not to tear it. I got this idea from a very talented friend, Tina of Tina's Diary, on her June cover setup. I linked her YouTube and Instagram accounts below so you can check out her stunning work. On the branch, I added this swirl of gold around the stem. It may look kind of Christmassy, but I still like that adding gold to it gives a whimsy effect on the illustrations. And just like in my previous new bujo setup, I'm also doing a Dutch door layout on this tracker. I cut 4 pages vertically and drew some boxes for the monthly titles using the same colors. Money tracking is different from person to person, so the things I'm writing here is personal and may not work for you. For each month, I'm listing down my income that's coming mostly from my work here on the internet as a content creator. It comes from different small streams such as YouTube, being a brand affiliate, and very rare sponsorships, and a small percentage from my local online shop in a platform called Shopee. And then my expenses. We still live in my parents' house as we slowly save for our own home. I'm grateful that we don't need to pay housing or utilities for the meantime, so I only listed a few here. And then lastly will be the savings. I wrote the rest of the months and just copied the same list on each Dutch door page off camera. On the space to the left here is for listing my needs and wants. I divided that into 2 sections and also glued 2 square craft papers on each. The final touch will be this ripped washi tape on top of the spread, and it's done! We have a couple more spreads to set up, so let's flip to the next one, and this ended to be one of my favorite layouts in this setup. I'm adding this long strip of washi tape on the top and bottom parts of the spread, and also ripping the ends. I glued this bigger craft paper on the page to the right and a small round one on the top left corner. This page will be for my entertainment, where I list down some of the movies, series, books, and songs I want to check out. I honestly checked out more movies and series in the first half of the year, especially when I was on my summer holiday, than getting to read a book or listen to an audiobook. I wanted to bring back the habit of reading, but I don't want to pressure myself and just do it when I have time. I painted a small branch of leaves on the entertainment page. And then on the top right side of the spread is a longer branch extending towards the middle. This will be my bucket list page. As you can see, it's too big for the title to fit, but I decided to write on top of the illustration, and I think it turned out nicely. On the craft paper, I drew columns for 3 sections where I'm writing the activity, the date, and how I would rate the experience. I also almost forgot about the gold details, so that was the last thing I did on this spread. Now we are down to the final spread I'm going to do for this setup. As I mentioned, my job is creating content here on social media, so it's also useful for me to track the growth of my accounts where I post, mainly here on YouTube and on Instagram. I also have TikTok, but I'm still not really used to it. If you're not a subscriber or a follower yet, I hope you will consider subscribing and following. It will be very much appreciated. I was also thinking to continue working on launching a Patreon. I opened it in 2020, but I'm still in the fence about it since I'm still figuring out what I could offer and making sure that I'll be actually able to complete Patreon rewards. There are so many things to consider, but let me know in the comments if you would be happy to support me in Patreon soon. So here I glued some craft paper again, and this is where I draw line graphs to see the growth of each account. I didn't write the target numbers yet, but now we are doing my period tracker. This is my first time including a period tracker in my bullet journal. It's a good time for me now since it's back after my pregnancy, and for any one of us menstruating, this would be a very helpful spread to keep track of our monthly cycle and have a better understanding of ourselves, our moods, and body. And also a good reason to be able to tell a doctor or gynecologist a clear answer when they ask, When was your last period? Because honestly, I always give a vague answer, like maybe 2 weeks ago. But yeah, there are ways of tracking period. On this page, I just drew a huge rectangle shape again and drew dots for all the dates of the next 6 months. For now, I only want to mark my symptoms such as acne, bloating, headaches, and so on by encircling the dot, and the days of my actual period by crossing them. It doesn't have to be complicated, but you can also create a key and maybe make it color-coded. I'm just completing this spread with the botanical illustrations that are nicely fitting the negative spaces, and we are finally done with this whole setup. I'm just ending this by sharing a little flip through of my new 2022 bullet journal for the second half of the year. Remember to hit the like button if you like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Don't forget that I will be uploading my July Plan With Me video by the end of the month. I have a new monthly theme and layouts to show you. Thank you so much for being here and planning along with me. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you in my next one. Bye everyone.